Alright, now it's time to go on the Kreeli Comet to check on the Irish supercomputer, assuming we manage to, survive the pirates that are currently infesting the place.
I love how the subtitle implies that the supercomputer is an entire planet in and of itself.
Those pirate ships are blocking our path to Iris. We must find a way to sneak
I mean,
through.
you can make an argument that, the supercomputer requires a lot of, cold temperature to not overheat, and, well, a comet is just a big ball of ice, so, yeah, it could work out. Alright, yeah, the flamethrower makes a return, although with a slightly different name. Again, the overall arsenal for this particular game, while not mimicking the one of the first game, has a couple of slight callbacks, if you want.
It has some callbacks, it has some new stuff.
Alright,
as one would expect from a sequel game in the franchise. You're robots. How do you get cold?
The lubricant freezes.
Maybe these are the robots that were granted
Perhaps it is time to try
free
out
will
our
and
new
thinking.
Holo-Pirate disguise.
I mean,
Alright, it's time to
typically
test properly the Holo-Guise gun.
typically the idea is, you get the sentience, but you don't have, the aversions to the environment when you're a robot. Unless someone's just feeling like a dick programming those in, or they just want them to feel that
It's part of a
real.
gag of universe where the robot have just that much amount of sapience. Alright, since this is actually what the game expects you to, get the first, test of the Holo-Guise, that's where, you premiere all the mechanics, including the door.
You guys literally line up just to get blown up for these dances.
It's a backup dancer representation.
Yes, it's a good commentary on society in that backup dancers are just ammunition to be used for the careers of the stars here, as they are eventually blown up.
I don't remember if you can actually, forego stealth and go full akimbo on this, or if all of these loot is reserved for when you eventually get back.
Be interested. Sign up at the meeting hall. Those of you with peg legs need not apply.
Oh, actually, no, never mind. You have to, because you have to operate the mechanism. There you go.
What did you do with that little robot pirates?
Sorry, I don't know. I'm here for the maintenance, so, taste my flames, bitch. I don't know.
Let's just say I fired him.
Yeah, let's go with that. I can't do puns.
Ratchet, we need to work on your sense of humor.
Alright, in true tradition, the red containers are explosive barrels, so, go to town with those.
It was literally fire on sight. The disguise didn't mean jack squat.
No, because the platform went up. I was running on the impression that I could try, but no, that didn't happen. Also, if I recall correctly, the cannon is slightly similar to the one used in the Spyro games. Just without the arc trajectory. When it comes to the other side options, there is not much to say about it. The only major one that I can say potentially is the confuzzler gas, which is basically serves to turn the enemy against each other temporarily. Again, it's a neat concept, but it will be dropped immediately with the next game, and some of these stuff, like the Groovytron or Mr. Zircon, will instead be, properly reconverted into actual weapons. Alright, time to grind.
Please report to the armory. I need me cannonballs buffed to a high shine.
I love it. Apparently even the stalactite of ice have bolts inside them.
They did a good job renovating the place, it seems.
I mean, not that I'm complaining, but still.
Just goes to show the long, icy grip that technology has onto nature.
But again, we went with the spin-offs where you could gain bolts also in both jail and the dream sequence, so... Alright, let's see if these guys don't notice us immediately.
So in flies the Phoenix, this ginormous ship with twin plasma cannons and iron turrets.
Surprised there are no jokes about cardboard boxes, considering this franchise has the occasional stealth.
Declares herself a captain. I swear.
Guess they're trying to keep it pirate-based for the most part. You know, I could totally see Metal Gear doing a pirate spin-off. I'll be honest, I would have seen it doing a pirate spin-off sooner than I would Yakuza, but here we are.
Well, Metal Gear, when you really get down to it, Metal Gear hasn't had a new game since Survive, so...
Okay, I should specify, I mean back when the series was more active, like... And mind you, I'm still unsure what exactly is their main big plan. Like, yes, they're remaking 3, but surely they've got to have, like, a longer game plan in mind.
For now, clearly we're probably just gonna make a second collection with, you know, some of the other stuff. We'll have to see exactly how that entails.
Yeah, that does beg the question. Like, all clues, leaks, and whatnot do point to a second collection coming about. I wonder what's been the holdup with that.
It just happened, you know, that we had to wait time. That's what happened with stuff like, you know, Castlevania. Then we had to wait still for a while to get stuff like Contra, and only recently they did announce the one about Gradius, you know, their space shooter, which otherwise would have been relatively easy to do. And unfortunately, Frogger is still unaccounted for despite everything.
Poor Frogger. Frogger's kind of like, I guess, okay, Metal Gear's obviously the darling of Konami, but Frogger is technically the guy who kind of got them, you know, started.
Yeah, Frogger was that. There was even a dispute that they had with Sega about ownership of the IP, and eventually they won. Both Frogger and Castlevania were the big two that, you know, properly had Konami. Contra was following very close to that, obviously, but not technically on the same level.
I'd say Frogger is like Konami's Alex Kidd to Metal Gear being basically their equivalent to Sonic. Like, Metal Gear nowadays is pretty much what most people would gauge as, like, you know, the most popular and recognizable face from Konami, but Frogger was definitely one of the ones who helped get them put on the map. Mind you, I at least get better with Sonic, why Sonic really took the reins over Alex Kidd, because sure, Alex Kidd was there first, but Sonic was the one who excelled at it. Poor Frogger. Frogger was doing well, even after the different eras where they tried to turn what was originally a story about us trying to cross the road into this sweeping, massive RPG epic.
Well, not necessarily an RPG, still a platforming challenge, but definitely more story-oriented in a sort of a sci-fi, angle.
I could have sworn the GBA game was more of an RPG, but okay, basically, Dwibs, you know how when you think of Frogger, you think of Frog crossing the road trying to avoid getting hit by cars?
Yeah.
Later iterations made it into a sweeping epic, complete with goblins, demonic sharks, fairies, a chosen one quest, and all that.
Where, you know, they had a terrible redesign of Frogger, and...
It's a game about a frog crossing a road. What the hell do you get anything out of?
Well, the same thing when you think about, you know, Sonic, just about a blue road and stopping an overweight doctor from taking over the world. When you really get down to it, with, you know, you can take any premise and do something with it. It's just that, clearly, starting with the PS2 era, Konami had no fucking clue what to do with the IP.
Like, you know, I'll give Sonic credit. Sonic at least felt like he lent himself more to some epic stuff because even as early as the 90s, Sonic was always about being the edgy guy, you know. Obviously, whereas, you know, he was more so the cool rebel as opposed to Mario's cutesy,
Yeah,
goody
yeah, it was,
two-shoes
again,
hero.
the premise that I said literally can be easily interpreted as, you know, Sonic being literally an equal anarchist icon, so...
Especially since the show's definitely built on that, especially with Sad AM and
And
Underground.
then
Like,
Paramount was like, you know, you should be friends with the cops instead.
to his credit, it's like small town cops, so you know, not as much part
And
of
then
the
the third
establishment.
movie
but
said, you
yes,
should
the
work for
irony.
the government.
You know, there's a bit of specifications with that, but yes, that is more or less how it starts. Mind you, later on, he does pretty much butt
Oh,
heads with
I
the
know, it's
government.
just that
but,
I
yeah.
know for a fact that most people are turned off just by that, and as someone who tries to stay away from the franchise only seeing from a distance, I kinda get it.
Yeah, but yeah, no. Frogger just makes me tilt my head because, like, Frogger was just cutesy, wholesome, and whatnot, modern tech. Although, to its credit, one of the GBA games does have it's that the Goblin Town does still drive cars and trucks and whatnot.
Occasionally,
that you have to
okay,
avoid.
again, in true tradition, similar to what Namco did with Pac-Man, occasionally you do get the classic retro style levels that are stylized like the old game, just in a different kind of way, you know. So it wasn't even that; it was just the aesthetic they were going for. Again, the Great Quest was just unpleasant to look at and unfinished to boot. Watch Nitro Rad's reviews if you need a field of reference. But the games that they did after, like Frogger Beyond and similar, had a better idea on what to do, including the redesign potentially. The real problem was that they never managed to, similar to how the Silent Hill games done by Western development team never got the idea on how to balance properly the combat and the horror aspect. The Frogger games after the Great Quest never, you know, managed to balance out the level of challenge that the player is supposed to have. Either they're too easy or excessively hard.
Oh yeah, wait for my playthrough of Frogger's Adventures Temple of the Frog. Like, that one, okay, I'll admit, I actually kind of like that game, and that was actually one of the better received games back when Frogger was on his more adventure quest look here and there. It surprisingly goes pretty hard, even in the soundtrack, but God, is it not meant for beginners? Once you clear that first level, be prepared to be tested about as hard as, say, okay, not quite Ghosts and Goblins, but,
It's still,
like on
you
the level
know,
of Mega Man and Bass.
yeah, it's still, you know, relatively challenging for what it's basically demanding to the player. And basically, after one game on the 3DS, I forgot which specific one, they just stopped.
That was weird. Like,
the
it wasn't even
the
like
3DS
there was...
was technically the last major hurrah for a lot of games that Konami was making. We, of course, witnessed Dr. Trek and the Forgotten Knights. There was also the game that Tri-Ace made for them, Beyond the Labyrinth, but that one was never localized to begin with, which is a crying shame because it's actually not that bad of a concept. Again, above everything, the 3DS library is the one that I hope Konami gets to have it restored in some capacity, not just for the sake of saying, oh, Dr. Trek now is known a bit more for, you know, for some people, but again also because there are still some legitimately good games there. Okay, not so much the 3DS port of Metal Gear Solid 3. That was an interesting idea that only tried to be like that because, well, 3 in the title, 3D, ha ha ha, Kojima is having a laugh behind your back, you know.
I played it for a bit.
You know, honestly...
It was bizarre.
Similar to the port of Tales of the Abyss. It's basically a PS2 conversion that is very ambitious, but unfortunately the performance and the graphical compartment do suffer as a result.
You know, thinking back to the Frogger redesign, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that they were trying to make Frogger out to be the next Sonic.
Well, yeah,
like,
Namco was doing the same thing with Pac-Man in Pac-Man World 3.
Like, you know, okay, at least with the Pac-Man World series, you know, before we got Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventure. The Pac-Man World Series was at least a fine enough redesign for Pac-Man. He still kind of had that look of Pac-Man when need be, but it was a cutesy enough design here, whereas Ghostly Adventures feels like it's trying to be Sonic in the worst way possible.
So Sonic
and by
Boom,
that... Actually, yeah, that was pretty much what I was about to say. It looked like Pac-Man trying to be Sonic Boom. Terrible. Okay.
Between that, Mega Man Fully Charged, like, I get the idea there was possibly an intern in some companies that were like, guys, the new hot thing is to have a redesign of your key mascot, you know, in the worst way possible to appeal to the newest generations. Trust me, it's totally gonna work. Spoilers,
now,
it didn't for any of them.
Now, if I may play devil's advocate a bit, given that at the time Sonic Boom was one of the biggest spin-off things, to the point where some people do argue that that wasn't just going to be a spin-off, that was supposedly going to be a whole new reboot.
Well, didn't a recent interview with Takashi Iizuka pretty much stated that that was the big gamble of Sonic Team at that time?
I don't recall him ever confirming that that was going to be the big replacement, but speculation has been through the roof on that. I will say this, with Sonic Boom, I don't even hate all the redesigns. Mind you, I'm not sad to see most of them go. Sonic Boom did actually manage to give us some good things, mainly the TV show and whatnot, but yeah, it's easy to see why some would have thought it was going to be the big maneuver here. Like, trust me, you don't see a project on the wavelength of Sonic Boom every day, even as just a spin-off, so I can get why a lot of companies would have played Follow the Leader, because one thing Sonic has over a ton of platformers in the industry is that he has managed to weather some heavy storms. Like, I'm a big Sonic fan, but I ain't gonna deny that he has had some rough patches here and there, which would normally see a lot of other franchises absolutely murdered for that. But nah, he keeps on chugging, and nowadays he is better than ever. That being said, though, to Frogger's credit, this was like in the earlier 2000s where, yeah, Sonic 06 hadn't quite hit yet, so as far as people were concerned, Sonic was more or less one of the most unstoppable franchises that wasn't Mario. And if they wanted to try and renovate Frogger, I get it. Give him a bit of a cool design, give him some attitude on the covers and whatnot. Giving him clothes was a choice.
Well, they were trying to go for the fantasy aesthetic and giving the idea of the bayou aesthetic. They wanted, you know, for that to be, oh, you know, peasant from the bayou, you know, raising up to be a big shot. Yeah, mind you, I'm still talking about the Great Quest redesign, which looks absolutely atrocious overall.
The Great Quest redesign pretty much would hold until 2005 with Frogger Helmet Chaos. I think he actually does look better on the cover of that game. Yes. That's why I said Helmet Chaos was like the last one with that design before they then did some... Then they did basically stuff where Frogger looked cutesy, like My Frogger Toy Trials.
Well, in that case was, you know, Frogger being a mascot that you used in a similar way to the actual Digimon games, specifically the portable ones.
And then there was Frogger Returns. Jesus Christ. Scott the Waz covered that in his WiiWare Chronicles stuff. It doesn't look great. But then we come to the redesign I absolutely do not like. Frogger 3D, which was basically turning Frogger into a more realistic-looking frog. Ugh. Then there was Frogger in Toy Town, which, yeah, he looks realistic again. And then there was Frogger in the Rumbling Ruins, which basically gave a realistic frog an Indiana Jones hat.
Yeah, I remember that. If I recall correctly, it was exclusive for something like Apple Arcade or something.
Now, if I recall correctly, I think Frogger Decades was a mobile one that may have brought back the
point is that the last we've seen of Frogger is actually a commemorative artwork in 2020 that Konami had including a bunch of RIPs, and there he is sitting right next to Liquid Ocelot. So bizarre.
Yes!
An image.
Okay, you know what? If they can use Metal Gear Solid as an excuse to bring back Frogger, I wouldn't
Well,
even be
there
mad.
were the Program collectibles in MGS3, and judging from the trailers, they are bringing those back from the remake, so there is that.
Like, Metal Gear is that kind of series that could get away with shoehorning in other franchises. Maybe make them hallucinogens, or shoot, actually do include them somehow in the narrative.
Well,
I mean,
again,
look.
well, I don't remember if it was ever confirmed. The speculation was that the nightmare sequence that you get if you stay in prison was a cancelled IP that, that was with its prototype reused just for that moment. It's still bizarre that it was cut away from subsequent re-releases, but whatever. Alright, I forgot the name of the specific weapon I'm using. Basically big laser, but it's not a BFG, so it's not like the Rhino. Although, as you can see, it's still doing a decent amount of damage. And now we're finally found the Iris supercomputer. So it's time to ask some questions.
So this is the Iris supercomputer. How do you turn this thing on?
It appears to have been damaged by space pirates. Perhaps I can repair its CPU.
That should be
Ratchet,
simple
no, you
enough.
pressed the wrong button. You turned off the whole game.
Okay, no, first we need to fix it. I forgot using Clank and the help from the Zoni.
Yes, I did, in fact, well, actually, no, I did not see the Tron movie, but I can get where these aesthetics are going for.
Well, I'm not sure, they are completely really Tron-based. If anything, it reminds me a bit more of, with the whole ornate metal thing, it reminds me a bit more of Atlantis. Lost technology and all, especially also the Cyan,
Did they ever state that Atlantis took some aesthetic cues from Tron or not?
Not really. If anything, again, the entire premise was to take inspiration from, archaeology related stories from the 30s till the 50s. The same kind of thing that inspired Indiana Jones and then Tomb Raider.
True, but they did also include a bit of a technological aspect of it, which did have the blue.
Well, a
lining and
lot of
outline
those
shown.
weird stories, Jova, usually tended to end with aliens being involved. Kingdom of Crystal Skull didn't invented shit, let me tell you that.
Oh yeah, no, trust me, I do get the runaround there. But yeah, it does make me wonder if, maybe this game's going for both then, both Tron and Atlantis.
Or maybe it's just doing its own thing,
Yeah, true. Coincidences are a thing after all. What I do find interesting about this Ratchet & Clank game is how it definitely feels like a bit of a change from more of the mystical, though. At least with these spirit bots, as well as...
Well, the Zonies do have a technological aspect to them, it's just really will not be revealed until a crack in time.
There's a spiritual aspect here, and then there's a bit of a Kryptonian thing going with Ratchet, where, it turns out the Lumaxes are incredibly endangered.
Or more like we had a past where something happens between them and the Kragmites, so that's what we're actually here to find out.
Again, I will give them credit. I get that this might have rubbed some fans the wrong way, because from what I recall, while not outright hated, Tools of Destruction is one
There you
that
go,
can
that's
kind of...
that's this guy's code, if I recall correctly, to get the Zoni costume in Secret Agent Clank. If you got your way, you basically receive that message, you input in Secret Agent Clank, and Clank gets a Zoni costume. Go on.
Yeah, it's... while Tools of Destruction doesn't seem to be one of the hated games of the series, it does still seem to be one that can strike up some conversations of contention. I'm guessing part of that does have to do with some of the heavy some of the retcons that they do, which, you know what, I'm gonna be fair. I get why they would include retcons here, since, in a way, Tools of Destruction is meant to be the start of a new era, and... I'm not saying that you have to have retcons, but if you're going to include a retcon, now probably would be the time rather than later.
I mean, besides, like I said, I will still take, any of these over, Deadlocked.
Deadlocked.
Like, sure, like I said, that one was still okay to play, but, my god, at the very least, there's color balance here and there's some creativity put on display. But yeah, again, as you can see also in pretty much everything, the Zoni have the same identical function as the Gadget bot did in the old games. You know, they just serves to, you know, being told what to do in specific, you know, go to specific places or activate like a generator. Although in this case they do help you a bit more in combat, just by, in this case, having a range attack instead of getting up close. And you know, they get up mostly instantly after getting downed, so you don't have to go back to the spawning point.
Oh, very nice.
Alright, if I recall correctly, we should be almost done. We just need to put the pieces back together. There we go.
Yep.
As simple as that.
And it says, oh shit, I put one in the wrong order. We start over.
Another evasion. Where Tolwyn has been captured in the Intergalactic prison of Zoldyun.
I forget, but do they ever establish if, like, they're all-knowing or just they only get onto this intel?
Well,
when
they
it
are all
arrives?
knowing for a good
What
reason,
can you
but
tell me
it's
about
not the
the
time yet. Oh, this is important.
Its creation marked the turning point in the Great War.
Hello, how?
How does it work?
Existence is divided into infinite dimensions.
Of course
So
it is.
yeah, here's how it is. The Dimensionator is a dimension traveling device. It's
Then how
not a
did Tachyon
weapon of
survive?
destruction. It just opens a portal and you chuck something in. And Tachyon was the only one that survived by accident.
So basically, this kind of implies that the Lomaxes may have accidentally teleported themselves out.
Hold on.
He set out to bring back the Kragmites.
So where's the Dimensionator now?
An explorer named Max Ahuji relocated it to Kershu City. All cells functioning at 8% capacity. 8% capacity.
No.
You can actually
wait.
go later
Where
to
did the
ask more
Lombaxes
questions
go?
about the trivia about the
Why did they
franchise
leave
later. I
me
think
behind?
I'm gonna show that in the extra part. But that's the important part you need to know. It seems
We
that
need to
the
get back to the
Lomaxes
city.
use the
We can get our hands on the
Dimensionator to
Dimensionator.
basically
A
exile the
wormhole
entire
device too dangerous for anyone to possess.
Kragmite
Now,
race
please,
into a
the
different
Zombies say
dimension
Talwyn is in
and then
trouble.
put it away.
We need to get to
They
Zordon.
took pity on only
You know,
one
Clank,
survivor,
just once,
Tachyon,
I
but
wish
that
you'd listen
was
to your
apparently
real
their
friends
undoing.
instead of your imaginary ones.
Wow. So, by having some compassion, they spared the guy who would later try to annihilate their race.
This was their biggest mistake. Again, it's very inspired by, you can tell that this plot point is lightly inspired by the Star Wars prequels with the whole power gives hubris, underestimate, you know, towards an enemy, which ultimately leads to downfall. Classic narrative kind of stuff. Anyway, tuning for the next part, where we go to the interdimensional prison, into the intergalactic prison to save Tolwyn. Yeah.
See you
Right.
then.